Okay. So whenever you start a project, start a site, all right, in this class, you need to stick it in its own folder. I don't care where that folder is, but it needs to be a folder. All right. Think. Start a new like web page, or like a file page or file. I'll show you. We'll do it right. We'll do it right now. Um, but you need to, anytime you start a new project, you need to create a folder, name that folder the name of the project, and then this is where all your files are going to live. This is essentially the hierarchy of your website. All right, exists. This folder is your website. All right, if I'm building a website, testthing.com essentially is what this website is. Okay, it all exists within this folder. If you want to open that in Atom, you can, like to get that project directory, you just go to open. Maybe the dialog box pops up. Open. Wait. Oh, there we go. Wow, Atom's really slow today. Open up Atom again. All right. I don't want you. All right. So Command O to open. Navigate to wherever your project folder is, and then just don't select the file inside the folder. Just select the folder itself. What this is going to do is it's going to open it in this. It's going to open this drawer on the side, the sidebar, and the sidebar is going to give you a collapsible view of all the files in your project. Okay, and this is really useful. This is really helpful. This is how you should work. Don't work with a bunch of individual files or individual windows. Like, don't open every file in a separate window in Atom. That's a pain. Okay, stay organized. I'm actually going to go ahead and delete that file. You'll see that Atom lets me do a lot of things just by right-clicking. So I'm just right-clicking. I have a good context. It's called your context menu. I have a good context menu in Atom. So I'm going to right-click on the folder name. I'm going to go to New File. It's going to say, hey, what new file do you want? Well, our default file in the root, so the first level of our project, it's called the root. We want it to be called index.html. So just type in index.html, it creates that index.html file, opens it up right here for me, which is awesome. I also like to have I like to split my window. I like to have two panes. It's useful to be able to have your CSS open and your HTML open at the same time, because you're going to be using a lot of selectors in CSS. Selectors are ways of targeting elements and classes and IDs, all right? Which we're going to talk more about as we start building. So this web page that we're going to build today, I'm going to demo it, and I'm going to give you the rest of the class to build it, and then it'll be due on Monday. This is just sort of like a short descriptive website or web page about yourself, right? It'll have your name, an image you choose, maybe your class standing, one goofy thing about you. It doesn't matter, right? Just something to sort of like, it's easy content for you to fill in, and I want you to sort of play around with, we're going to move it around a little bit, bunch stuff up, and kind of. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
What's up?
Is this Monday or Wednesday? Because Monday's Labor Day.
It's Monday. You have to be here on Labor Day. Yeah. Nope. It'll be Wednesday. Thanks for pointing that out.
I can't open. When I had the index HTML that we made when we were setting up Atom, I can't open it in Atom.
You right click on that. So like from Windows Explorer, right click on it, and does it like give you an open with? Or can you go to Atom and then just...
It has open with, but it doesn't give me Atom as an option.
Okay, so just go to Atom, like open Atom on its own.
Yeah.
And then go to File, Open, and go to the folder that you have that index file.
I don't have a file. That's what I'm saying.
You don't have a file. You don't have an
It doesn't say
Windows.
I don't know why you don't have a... Who else is on Windows? Do you not have like menu bar? Not a menu bar. Yeah. Oh, she might have turned it on. Do you know what the keyboard shortcut is? Probably under your view menu.
Yeah.
Look under view.
Press Alt key.
Toggle menu bar. That's what it is. Yeah.
So now hold down Alt. Press Alt. Yeah, you just have to press Alt.
Okay, perfect. So Alt will bring your menu bar back.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. All right. So yeah. So I'm just gonna start building. You guys don't necessarily need to work with me, okay? Because you're gonna be doing this on your own. So watch, take notes, but I'm also recording it, so you'll have this to refer back to over the weekend. All right. Okay, so it needs to be an HTML page, and we installed Emmet last week. So because it's already been saved as an HTML, and I know that by looking down here in the bottom right, down here in the bottom right tells me my encoding, tells me what kind of file I'm working in. Yeah.
Can you go over how to save it as an HTML thing?
Oh.
How do you make it say that?
Right. So what I did, you can just right-click on the folder name, right? And then you should get new file. It should be right at the top. All right, you click new file. When that pops up, you just type in like the name of the file dot HTML. That dot is the HTML extension. All right. And then just double check that over here on the bottom right you have your encoding correct, or your file type in correct. So if for some reason when you type in HTML at the top and you don't get this drop down, then that means that your file type that you're working in is not an HTML file. All right, that's a quick way to know that you haven't saved it as an HTML file yet. So go back to, double check that you've saved it as an HTML. If you haven't, save it as an HTML file. All right, HTML, I have this nice drop down courtesy of Emmet. So I just type in HTML and hit enter, and I get this little boilerplate. All right, it's called a boilerplate because it's, well, the term boilerplate is old. It essentially means template. Okay, so this is a little template. We've got our HTML open and closing tags for our HTML element. We've got our head and our body element. Inside our head, we have our character set, our first meta tag, and then we have our title. Remember, title is what shows up in the tab. Okay, so if you're in your browser and you've got it open, you got multiple tabs open, whatever that tab says is inside this title element. Okay, so call this whatever, my first web page, something. I don't care what you call it. Okay, it can be whatever you want it to be. Let's set up the rest of our stuff too before we work too much into our HTML file. We're going to come back over to your project drawer, right-click on the folder name and create a new folder. I'm right-clicking on the folder name so that everything gets created in that first level, okay, the root of our project. So this is going to be the name of our folder. This is our CSS folder, so I'm just doing CSS, all lowercase. Double check that we've got a CSS folder. We do. Right-click on the CSS folder, new file. This is going to be style.css. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create our CSS file as well, and I'm going to drag it over here to the right-hand side so that I have my CSS open and my HTML open. You will always do your HTML first, or at least most of your HTML first, before you start in your CSS. Okay, almost always, actually always, because you can't. You have nothing to style in your CSS if you have no HTML. HTML is the structure, it's the skeleton, all right? Can't have, well, you can. It's just be a bag of jelly, but can't have a body without a skeleton, essentially.
How did you get it over there?
You just drag it. Just click and drag. If you don't have two tabs up, if you don't have two panes, just go to View, Panes, then split right, and that'll give you another pane over here, another window. And then click and drag and drop it there. Yeah. Okay, so then coming back to our HTML file, I just made it so that I could link to it. I know I'm going fast, but you'll have the video. Okay, so really just like take some notes. If you can't see it, move up. Maybe. Do you need to move up or?
I think you're good now.
Yeah. What was wrong? The text kind of small. Okay.
Oh, that helps.
That helps a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I forgot it was so tiny. All right. So we made the these are like the three things that I always make by default whenever I start a new project. Okay. I make a folder called CSS. I put a style.css file in it, or something.css file in it, and then I make an index.html file in the root, not in the CSS folder. Okay. These are the basics, the basic elements that you need to start your website or web page. Come back over to your head, link. We're creating a link to the CSS, so you can just type in link and hit enter. It's a style sheet. Now it's auto-filling a bunch of stuff here that we don't need. So I can come in and edit this. It's not called master, it's called style. And then this title, we don't need a title, you can take that out. Media screen, you can leave that if you want. These are all options. You don't necessarily need all of them. If it auto-fills them for you, great. If not, don't worry about it. This is the basic bit that you need, this line 7. Okay, link, relatives or relation style sheet, hypertext reference. This is just that path. Remember we talked about relative paths last week. So again, this is a relative path to that file. Whether or not that / is there is really up to you. It works either way, / or no / it's the same thing. Okay, that first /, you need all your subsequent /. I don't like the way it looks with the first /, so I always take it out. All right, so I have this HTML page linked, but I have no content on my HTML page. So if we were to right-click on this right now and go open in the browser, it's blank. There's nothing here. Okay. All right. So like I said, this page needs to have your name on it, an image you pick, and then maybe some stuff about you, class standing, other things like that. And we're going to arrange it in such a way that we can move it around a little bit, play with it, get things side by side, not just have it top down. Okay. All right. All right. So let's create a section. So I'm going to do a lot of stuff in Emmet using the Emmet shorthand because I want you to just go ahead and learn the Emmet shorthand because it makes writing HTML a lot easier. We all have it installed. So when you write in Emmet, generating HTML with Emmet is really fast using these tricks, not tricks, but this Emmet syntax that I'm going to show you. Okay, so you write the element name that you want. So in this case, section. And then there are two ways of identifying elements or differentiating elements from each other. So say we have like 6 sections, right? We have 6 different section element tags or section elements on a page inside our HTML. But we want them to all be treated differently. We want to be able to target them differently in the CSS. Like point the CSS at them differently or apply different CSS settings to them. It's all different ways of saying the same thing, right? How would we differentiate them? We could just type in section over in CSS, but then it would apply all those settings that we'd write down to all of the sections, right? Because the CSS goes through the HTML. It's like, oh, here's 6 sections. I'm going to give them all, a border of blue or something like that, whatever characteristic you set for it. Well, you differentiate them by adding classes or IDs, or both, okay? Class is used for sort of like general things. If you're going to reuse those settings a lot, you're going to want to put them in a class, okay, and give it a class name. If it's something very specific to just that element, then you give it an ID. Does that make sense? It'll make more sense. I know it seems kind of, well, it's brand new, but it'll make more sense here in a second. All right, so this is a general kind of thing. So I'm going to do a class. So I'm going to put a period, which is the symbol for class. It's the CSS symbol for class. Okay, and then I'm just going to give it a name, which is just name, right? Now with Emmet, I can just hit tab, and it auto-generates the HTML for me. So let me redo that. So I just wrote down section period name, and I hit tab, and you see what it did? It generates a tag for me. It gives it this thing called class name in quotes, and then automatically puts my cursor between the 2 tags because that's where my content's going to go. right? Or if I'm going to add more elements inside of this. So if I was to write this out normally, right, I could do section like class equals quotes name.
So what is it? Section period name?
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
You might not have Emmet working.
Oh.
So writing all that out takes infinitely longer than just writing section period name and hitting tab. This is way faster. Okay.
I don't know. It's not working.
Okay, that's why don't worry about working with me right now. Let's get through this and then I'll come take a look. Are you sure it's an HTML file?
Yeah.
Your encoding say HTML at the bottom right?
It says HTML.
Right? Did you generate the boilerplate? Like when you type in HTML, do you get a drop down?
Yeah.
You get autocomplete. You hit enter and it makes that for you. So I do this.
Yeah.
Does it do that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Alright.
It generated other stuff for me.
Sure. It might be a little different. Are you in Atom or Sublime? Oh, okay. I don't know. Let's come take a look. So section class name. Alright, so then we're going to put our name in here. There's a bunch of different HTML elements that come with their own default embedded styling. That's just inherent to them. All browsers are going to style them this way. A lot of this is used for like if for some reason the link to the style sheet breaks, it's not just all plain same size fonts, right? It gives you like, the basic minimum of a style to sort of fall back on in emergencies. Now there are heading tags, headings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those you use for headings, like titles of things, text that you want to be big. The lower the number, the smaller the number, the larger the text. So an H1 is bigger than an H6. An H6 is tiny. Okay, H6 is almost paragraph tag, or P tag, the regular default font size. That's a P tag. So you have H1, you got an H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. H1 is going to be my name. You can do something like, hi, I'm Alex, right? Something like that. So if we go back to our browser, that's what that looks like. I just refresh the page. So I already had it open. I just command tabbed over, hit Command R to refresh. You can see which file I'm in right here. Hi, I'm Alex. Does that make sense to everybody so far? Okay. All right. It's all going to be really basic right now until we start playing with the CSS to make it kind of exciting. We just want to crank out a bunch of HTML. All right, so I'm Alex. Questions? Anybody have a question? No? Everybody's good? All right. So that's going to be our name section. You can do more than just that name. We'll do another section. We'll call it image. So section class image, which is not working. Okay. Why is that not working? Whoa. Image box. Okay. Now Emmet suddenly broke for me. That's awesome. That's really bad. That's not good. Am I spelling section wrong?
No,
It
it's
works
not
for
working
me.
for me.
It works for me.
It works
Didn't work for
because
me.
IMG works.
That's what I'm doing. That's what's happening.
Yeah, IMG works.
I mean section.img.
Section. Yeah, it wants to do that.
Oh wait, maybe it's
Huh. That's a bug. That's a
So
big bug.
section.img is not what we're supposed to do?
No. I'm trying to get it to work right now. Hold on. Sorry, no. Right now we're just trying to generate another section like that and then give it a class name. I was trying to use Emmet, but Emmet seems really buggy in Atom for some reason. Or image works. I'm giving it a class name of image. Although you want to be really, really careful using class names that are the same as an HTML element. Although this is not. The HTML element would be image. All right, image. Then really what we're doing with this is we want to stick the image inside of another box, another container. All right, you always want to nest your images inside of other containers to make them responsive. That's the responsive trick. All right, so to do that, I'm just going to create a, actually make sure create a div. I'm going to call this div image box. Hopefully this works. Wow, image is really broken. Hold on, I'm going to quit that real quick and see if just restarting it works. It's super annoying when that breaks. Yep, just restart it, then it works now. All right, so I made a div with an ID instead of a class called imagebox. The reason I did, actually, you know what? We're gonna make it a class. We'll do that. We're gonna reuse it. And then we're gonna put an image, an actual image element in here. So I just type in img, hit enter. It gives me a couple of options. This src means source. Let me make this a little bigger for you. It wants to know a path to the image. Well, I don't have an image in my project yet, so I'm not going to fill that path out. This alt, this ALT, is essentially like a little, if you were to put your mouse and hover it over the image and just leave it there, there'd be like a little pop-up that would come up. And this is what fills that pop-up. This is also used for like screen readers, so people that are hard of sight. People that can't see very well, they use a screen reader, so it's a program that'll go through and it reads all the alt tags and tells them what's there. So if you want to be really standards compliant and you want to build sites that are good for everybody, not just sort of a baseline, you don't want to be ableist essentially, right? You want to build sites for the disabled as well. Then you would put in descriptive alt tags. So like this is a black and white image of myself, right? Would be a good descriptive alt tag. Not everybody does alt tags, which causes problems, or is just not fun for people that rely on screen readers. Okay. Nobody's gonna see this unless your image breaks or they hover their mouse over it. Okay. I've come across sites where there's like rude things put in here, and it's sometimes funny and sometimes not. It's up to you. Again, this src is going to be that file path to the image, so we got to go out and find an image. I don't know. I'll go to Instagram and take that image of my son. Me and my son, real quick. Hey, flutes. Do this one. Oh, that's right. I'll just do a screenshot real quick. Just take it. All right, so I just grab the image. Want to make sure. All right, screenshot. I'm gonna drop it in the folder here. So it shows up over here. I can preview it. It's a little, yeah, okay, that's creepy. Hi. Hello. I'm going to rename it, just give it a different, it's a ridiculously long name, so I'm just going to say me and boy. But I also don't want my images just sort of hanging out in the root, so I'm going to come up to the name of the project, create a new folder, call that one images, and then drag and drop that into that folder so that all my images exist in a folder that you call images. Okay, and you can name it, photos, pictures, images with vowels. It's up to you. I don't care as long as it's organized. All right, the organization is the important part. All right, so now I have a file path to that image. Stop! I didn't mean to do that. Adam is slow right now because I'm screen recording. He doesn't like it. So now I have a file path to that, so I can say, all right, index, go into images and load me and boy.png. Wow, that is really, really slow right now. Okay, so if we come back to our browser, not my Instagram page, I refresh, maybe. All right, so me and the kid. Right? All right, me and the kid. Now everything's being shown at its default size because we haven't done anything in the CSS yet to restrict sizes. It's not going to be responsive. It's going to get cut off. All right, we've done nothing to restrict these pages. Sorry, I have a ton of junk open right now. Oops. I'll leave that open. Okay. All right. Come back to our HTML. So that's our section image. We're going to come to the end of it. Hit enter a couple times, give yourself a little bit of room. Create another section. We're going to call this one bio, class bio. So section period bio. Hit tab. Autofills. All right. So then in here is where we're gonna stick a couple of, I want essentially 2 side-by-side paragraphs of information about yourself. All right, and how we set up the side-by-side is by sticking them in 2 separate boxes, 2 separate divs. All right, so we're gonna do div, the first div, I'm gonna give it an ID, so a hash mark, okay, is the symbol for ID. So div hash, we'll call this first, and hit tab, hit enter to get your proper nesting, right, to show that child-parent relationship. This is going to be a p tag. It's going to be empty right now. And then still in that section, but at the end of that div, or after that div, we're going to do a div ID second. Hit enter, p, tab. So I have essentially the same structure for both of these. It's a p tag inside of a div. Remember, div is just the generic element for creating a container. Okay, this could be easily just be article. You could do another section, which is sort of confusing from a standpoint of looking at the HTML. They have different ID names, but they are essentially side-by-side boxes inside of something called section class bio. All right, does that make sense to everybody? Kinda. All right. So this is where you're gonna stick your text. Now, I want you to actually put text in here. I'm gonna put lorem ipsum in here, which is don't do this. Put actual text in here. All right.
Why is it like? What's the difference between div ID and div class? I guess.
Well, so class is used to kind of apply settings or characteristics through CSS, and really there's nothing really that different between ID and class from a practical standpoint. There's just different ways that people use them. So class is most often used to apply to like if I wanted to set a setting for all of you, everybody in here, like consider yourselves all separate elements, but you all have the same class, right? It's 382. GDE 382 is your class, right? And I want to apply one whole setting to everybody. Then I would set class GDE 382, and then I'd have the settings listed under that, right? And that would be characteristics for all of you. So maybe I want everyone to be like 8 feet tall. So it'd be class GDE 382, 8 feet tall. Height 8 feet. Okay. But if I wanted to target one specific person within that class or within this group of elements that we are, right? Like Nikki, maybe I want to change Nikki's height to like 2 feet, right? So not much smaller, but 2 feet, right? Then I would, like literally in your CSS, this is what it would look like. It would be so we'd have class, so period, GDE 382. Right, and this would be height. I'm just gonna go 8 viewport height. All right, or actually, it doesn't matter, right? We'll go 8 feet right now. Sorry, it's really laggy. All right, 8 feet. Okay, so everything under the grouping of GDE 382, which if we want to get really dumb. Hold on. Let's get really, really dumb. Let's actually make this HTML. Oof. All right, so we're gonna have a div that I'm gonna call GDE. I'm gonna give it a class of GDE 382, and then I'm gonna give it oops. I'm going to give it a number of divs. So you're all divs inside of it. And then 16. So this is a line of emit. This is an emit formula that is going to generate one div called 382, GDE 382, with 16 blank divs inside of it. Eventually, there we go. All right. So instead of having to write all that out, you write one little short line of emit, one little emit formula, and it just makes it for you, which we'll get into that, doing that more. But now you can see that I've got all these blank divs. Well, according to my CSS over here, all of these have a height of 8 feet, right? But maybe like this one, I want is Nikki, and I want Nikki. So hash is your symbol for, if period is your symbol for class, hash is your symbol for an ID, okay? But I want Nikki's height to be different. I want Nikki's height to be, 4 feet, right? Then these would now all have different heights, okay? And if we want to actually see this, we can do this. Let's go 8rem. Just really quick, I'm going to make this so we can visualize it. We'll go width 2 rems. Actually, let's go 2% of viewport width. So Nikki's going to already get that width. I don't have to write a width for Nikki because Nikki is part of GDE 382. Actually, that's not going to work. It's going to be. Let's go to div. Let's do that. Let's target all the divs inside.
Oh, so I don't. So
you don't. I don't have to give you a width because I've already given the group that you're a part of a width. Okay. This is saying all the divs inside the class GDE 382. I was targeting incorrectly. All right. Does everyone sort of understand what's going on here? Let's give it. Let's give all these a background color. I'm not sure if recording is going to be the way to go about this. We'll do a blue. Got to have the hash mark in front because it's a hex color. We're going to give Nikki a different color. Seem tight. What is the color of a sneeze?
What is the color of a sneeze?
Yeah, it's something my daughter asked me once. She said purple. Is it gonna fill it? It's just, oh, it's running so slow. I don't know if that's gonna fill. There we go. All right. Oh yeah, not 4 feet. Let's go height 4 rems. Okay. I'm pretty sure this is gonna show up, right? So I refresh the page. Oh yeah, okay, so I know what I did wrong. So everything is showing up stacked on top of each other, right? So here's Nikki inside the class of 16 things. But let's line them up, which is something that we're going to do today.
Oh, that's cool. It shows you the color.
That's the Pigments plugin that I had you guys install. So if we do class GDE, GDE 382, this is the flexbox thing I was talking about. We set the display value for an element. You set the display for the parent in order to apply it to the children. All right, so I'm setting the display for, this is the parent, this class GDE 382, this div is the parent of all of these divs. I want all of these divs to line up horizontally, okay? So you set the parent display to be flex. So by default now they will show up side by side. Oops. Refresh. So now they're all side by side, right? They're all scrunched like that because we haven't set a width for GDE 382. All right, so it just takes the width of the content that's in there. All right, so that's the, all of those elements have a width of 2% of the viewport width. Does that make sense? All right. So if we give a width to the parent, say 100%, and then we use another setting of flex called justify content. to put space between all of the elements, all the content inside of gde382. So it's going to space them all evenly. So it's going to take them from being scrunched up to spacing them all evenly out across that 100%. So that's them all spread out. Okay? So do you guys see how that gets applied? We're talking about? So that's the difference between class and ID. All right? I wanted to pick one thing inside of that group with common that of elements that all share common settings. I wanted to pick one thing to change. All right? I could even make it so that it's at the bottom and not at the top. It's at the top because that's default. That's a default way that the page gets rendered. But given flex, we can do. Well, anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But that's the difference between class and ID. All right, we'll play with flex more later. Okay. Let's. God. You guys will get time in class to work eventually. I swear. Maybe what we'll do is we'll take a bunch of time in class on Wednesday to work on this too, so I can help with problems before it's due, and then we can take a look at it. So, all right, I'm gonna get rid of that, all that stuff we just wrote. Okay, it's all running terribly. Remember, if you're making changes and then you're jumping back to your browser and you're not seeing those changes reflected, like when you refresh the page, come back to Atom and make sure you don't have a little blue dot up in your tab. If you have a blue dot, that means you haven't saved the changes to that file, the most recent changes. All right, so these are on top of each other. We don't necessarily want that. We want them to be side by side. So we're going to do the same thing that we just did with that empty div to illustrate the examples of class and ID. Both of these divs, both of this stuff of text, they are both inside of a parent container called section class bio. So I'm going to come over to my CSS and I'm going to say bio. I'm going to give bio a width. Okay, so I'm going to give bio a width of, let's say, well, we'll just go 100% for now. Okay, you have to give it a width. Even if the width is 100%, which it is by default, you have to give it a width for flex to work correctly. Okay, give it a display of flex because it's the parent, right? So you're essentially setting this setting for the child, right? But there's no way to set it specifically on the child. You set it on the parent because it's more like telling the parent how to arrange the elements that are inside of it. Does that make sense? All right. So display flex. I always like to then do justify content space between. If you do space around, it does it on the left and the right and the middle. So what will happen is your content will move in from the left and the right, which always looks weird when you're trying to line elements up. All right, you're trying to line stuff up on the screen. So I usually just use space between, so it only gives you space in the middle. So space between. All right, that's all the settings we need for the parent. So then we can come down and we can say bio, class bio, and then we'll say div, like space div. And what this does is it's going to apply all of these settings to the div elements inside of bio. Okay, we're not grabbing the IDs yet because we're setting common settings between the two. Like these are settings that both of these divs are going to share. Does that make sense how I did this? Like why I didn't just, if I can do it this way and only have to write one section of CSS that gets applied to both of those divs, right? Because they're shared settings, as opposed to writing first some settings, second, ID second, the same settings. Does that make sense? I'm not duplicating what I'm writing. I'll show you. Everyone looks sort of blank. I don't know if it's because it's the end of class or. All right, bio div. So shared settings, we're going to give them a width. Remember, we want them to be side by side, okay? But I'm going to give them a width of not 50%, but like 48%. Does anyone want to take a guess why? This is 48% of their parent's width. Anyone want to take a guess why?
You don't want them like
touching.
touching.
Right. We want to give them some space in between, right? I want to give them their own little room. All right, so all right, that's all I want for their common characteristic. Then I can come down and start doing this. So if I were to do this just by IDs, I would need to do first with 48%, oops, and then second. Right, I'd have to write it twice, and that's a pain. So we're not going to do that. Okay, so first, the first one I'm going to give, I don't know. You can set the settings for the text now, so you could say something like, maybe you want your font style to be italic. So font style is where you set things like italic or italic, normal, oblique. Oblique is essentially the same thing as italic. If your font supports oblique, then it'll make it oblique. Otherwise, you set normal and italic here. If you want it to be bold, you set weight. So font weight. And so you can set it in a couple different ways. You can set bold, bolder, lighter. You can see these drop downs, but then all these numbers. The higher the number, the bolder the text. Okay, and this is only if your font supports that. All right, it's not all fonts will support it. On Wednesday, I'll show you how to import fonts because that's a lot of the fun part. How to link to fonts, web fonts, so you get more variation in your typography. Right now, we're just going to use the default font size. So I'm going to say, let's go bold for this one, and then let's set a font size. Now, font size is actually something that you should set using viewport width, like a percentage of viewport width. But you'll need to fix it at a certain point because then it will scale nicely. Like it'll make itself slightly smaller, try to stay proportional to the viewport, which is always good. I would do something like, it's a value you got to mess around with. So starting 3 is probably, if you want it to be kind of big, it's probably a good thing. All right, you can save that, and if you want to see what it looks like, you can jump over and do it. So you see how this got bigger. They're now side by side. There's still some like placement and moving and stuff that we're going to do to it, but do you guys sort of get the gist of what I'm asking you to do, like why that moved over, right? The display flex. Flex takes everything from being the default top-bottom arrangement. If it's first in your HTML, then it's at the top, right? And makes it so that it's very easy to put things horizontally side by side. Okay. We define the width of the parent so that we can then define the width of the child. If I tried to define the width of this text without a width of the parent, it shouldn't work. I'm not going to say it won't work, but it shouldn't work. Hold on. So I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take the width of the parent out. Come back and refresh. Okay, it stays the same. That's nice. Doesn't always work, right? If you haven't defined the width of the parent, it won't always work. It's better to be explicit with widths than it is to just hope that the browser understands what you're trying to do. Okay? All right. Okay, so we're going to stop there since we got like 4 minutes. And what I want for Wednesday, try to get about this far. Okay, I'm going to post the video on Blue Line when it's done, when I'm done uploading it. Try to get this far. Come to class. We'll work on it some more in class. I'll show you more CSS. And then we'll take a look at them at the end of class. All right? Yeah, Nikki, you got a question? Okay. Any questions? No? All right.